David, I'm interested in everyone's thoughts on the issue of overzealous policing, not necessarily race-based, but I feel there is an issue. I think there's some regulatory encouragements and protections that are offered to certainly in the American context with qualified immunity. But even in Australia, there's been some pretty horrible instances of people dying, particularly by gunshot. I think there is possibly an issue with, for example, there are regulations that stipulate that when say an intoxicated person or someone is approaching a police with what could be construed as a weapon, that the police are instructed to shoot for the mass, meaning they shoot in the chest. They don't shoot in the leg. They don't shoot. They don't. So the regulations are there to tell police what to do to protect themselves, and there may be, of course, good reasons for that. Of course, I mean, if you're a policeman and you're in these circumstances, then you would want you'd want the ability to protect yourself. But I think there's rising concern. I have some concerns about overzealous policing.
I don't think there's anywhere near the same level of concern in Australia as I don't think there's cause for the same level of concern in Australia as there is in America. I think there's plenty of incidents of police brutality in America. I think it's an entirely different policing culture to Australia. And not for a second would I presume that all police are good. But I think the incidence is much less in Australia. It's a lot harder to get away with it. I saw the stat today. I think it was something like there's 30,000 police in Australia. That's a huge number. You're definitely going to have bad apples in that bunch. You're definitely going to have police who are racial profiling and racially biased and maybe not using their discretion in the way that they should be. And I hope that all police officers are fighting it, extinguishing it, not tolerating it or looking the other way when they see it.
But the issue is if we accept that there's a large police force and there are going, of course, to be bad apples amongst such a large number of people, the issue is what system is in place to ensure that they get worked out of the police force. And that's where I personally have some concerns. And we've seen historically with issues such as corruption and, being involved in criminal activity, it's not easy to get rid of bad apples.
I've actually.
But anyway, I'll leave that there. Yeah.
No, it's worth going there. I want to ask hard questions because this isn't something that I guess our side of politics wants to talk about. We want to essentially emphasize personal responsibility. But you're very right. Somebody in the comments said something about a training issue. Now, I've got police contacts who have informed me their horror of people who fail some of the police recruitment standards, who are then invited to come back and reapply to fill certain quotas for the equitable outcomes that are required. And this is certainly going to be one of the causative factors. People who failed a psychological profile for not having the right personality for being in policing. It could be concerns for mental health. Have you got the toughness to survive the demands and the rigors on the emotional life of a policeman? But there's other things as well. So there's definitely issues that need to be fixed there. I wouldn't want to be misunderstood as sweeping those under the rug or trivializing them.
I think the thing that is alarming me in the US is that the Black Lives Matter movement, already we're seeing in Minnesota, they want to, defund the police, and the New York mayor has said that he's going to start defunding the New York police force and put it in the community programs. Now, I know you're not saying this, Andrew, at all, so please don't misunderstand me. But I just think yes, there are some bad apples. Yes, there are problems. And yes, we should talk about them. At the same time, it worries me deeply when the protests in Martin Place in Sydney, 3,000 people. The major chant that people were having was "F the police."
Yeah.
You know, that's just not only disgusting but disgraceful. That, I mean, there's a lot of good apples in the police force, and I know you're not saying this. You raise really important questions. I want to qualify that again, but I think I just want to just quickly and affirm that I think we actually have a really great police force in Australia. I've often found Evelyn Ray really helpful in this regard, and she's making just some great points that recruitment is the key. The whole quota system for anything, for politics, for police is a disaster. But, I think Evelyn's right. 98% of all these issues could be solved during the recruitment phase. And that itself is something that we need to look at. I think our system is great. Let's look at the recruitment stage and weed out the bad apples there. I think that's a great place to start.
It's not enough to do nothing. It's time for us to do something.